July 10th was a big day. Facebook and Instagram opened up their content to now be
ChatGPT and all of these tools are like part of my daily routine as a professor, and I actually incorporate different assignments. And one assignment that I think is very useful is
with AI, there's good sides, there's bad sides to it. I think the robots take over.
I feel bad for Snapchat. I mean, they really got screwed, by Instagram with stories, and then now it's TikTok and Reels.
Talk to us about where has the ball went, and then where do you see it going? Some of the changes that you see coming down the pipeline. Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Carroll. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Factory. Today, I'm honored to welcome Doctor. I think you might be the first doctor that we've had on the podcast. Karen Freberg, professor of strategic communications at the University of Louisville and director of the Bird's Nest, which I'm super excited to talk about. This is the university's pioneering student-run agency in strategic communications. Dr. Freberg is a nationally recognized leader, author, and consultant, building vital bridges between academia and industry. She's authored several award-winning books on social media, consulted for major brands like Adobe, Meta, and GM, and is passionate, super passionate, almost as passionate as I am about social media, about mentoring the next generation of communications professionals with research expertise in social media, public communications, influencer marketing, which I'm excited to dive into, and crisis communication. Dr. Freberg is shaping how organizations and students navigate today's digital landscape. So that'll probably be the last time I call you doctor, because you're just Karen to me. But Karen, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out in the Sales Factory today.
Honored to be here, Coach Carroll, and it's an honor. I've been following, your work for years, so it's great that we're able to have this conversation and talk to a fellow expert in social media. So I'm really excited.
I love it. And so, a lot of people may not know this, but you were an NCAA All-American student athlete, right?
I was back in the day. Yes, I will be actually celebrating next year 20 years of retirement from track and field, which my students are like, oh, the dark ages. I'm like, not that long ago, but
Right.
yeah, my former job was throwing things for a living. And so I was a shot putter, and I was able to compete for the University of Florida and Southern Cal. So my career ended in 2006. So I was a four-time All-American, school record holder for SC for about 12 years. And then I actually was a finalist for the 2004 Olympic trials. So,
oh my gosh. So how do we go from that to strategic communication and the Bird's Nest?
well, it actually is funny, Coach Carroll, because my PR social media journey actually really started during, when I was in my teenage years. So my mom's a psychology professor. My dad was in marketing for years before. Yeah. So I feel like my field is perfect. And
you grew up with it.
I basically grew up with it. Yeah. So, but they were always tech forward, very savvy in that realm. And so when the internet came about in the 90s, they actually, for our birthdays, I think in 95, they actually gave my sisters, and I have two sisters, Kristen, who's my older sister, and Carla's my youngest. I'm the middle. They each gave us our own domain name, for our own website. So mine started off, I tell my students, don't judge me too harshly for my very first inkling into a digital footprint on the internet. It was a fan site for the actor Val Kilmer, because I just saw Batman Begins and Top Gun. And so I'm like, okay, I was 13. So I tell my students, if you're ever afraid of your first digital footprint on the internet, don't worry, I got you. But what I did, Coach Carroll, is I really that didn't last too long. I actually used it as a platform to talk about my story as a student athlete, because I grew up in a very small town in California. Not many coaches were going to go and travel there to see what I was doing, but I felt it was important for me to share my story. So I was updating, what I was doing at meets. I was even posting my grades, which motivated me to do well in school. So I wanted to I didn't really know at the time, those early stage storytelling and blogging on the internet. That led to continuing that on in college, where I actually thought I was going to go pre-med. That didn't work out. And then it was my academic athletic advisor at the University of Florida who was like, Karen, why don't you do PR? You're creating all this content. You have a newsletter. You're taking pictures. You're very engaged, communicative. And I'm like, what's PR? Is that a real major? And I didn't know at the time that Florida has one of the top PR programs in the nation. So I took my and fell in love with it. And so track really taught me hands-on experience of media relations, making sure you don't say anything bad about your competitors because that could hurt you. And they did that to me, which motivated me. So I did well and beat them. So worked out, but it also allowed me to get practice in writing, creating my content. And so that passion and those hands-on experiences, and managing my personal brand really translated very nicely to what I'm doing right now. So I hung up my track and field shoes in 2006 for a variety of different reasons. One, I almost had a career-ending injury for my back in 2004, so I knew kind of my time was limited in terms of how much I could continue competing. But I also realized very quickly that if you go pro in track, you absolutely make zero money, even if you make, even if you're an Olympic,
Yep.
athlete or break world records. And so I thought, well, I need to kind of pack it in. So I translated what I was doing in track into going to grad school and then becoming a professor. And I always wanted to teach. Like I really have a passion for teaching. And as you know, like you do workshops all over the place.
Yep.
There's just something really rewarding about helping others.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's like it's also to me, teaching has become part of my learning process, and
Yeah.
so it's like I research, I learn, and then I teach because it's like to me, I'd say this all the time. It's like when I'm on stage talking about whatever it may be, right? Marketing, sales, AI. It's like
Mhm.
I'm giving the distilled version that I've gained through like hours or thousands of pages of reading. And so what happens is it like reiterates it in my brain and like concretes it. And so like selfishly, that's why I love being on stage, but unselfishly, it's just cool to give back to, right? I think there's something if you're somebody that coaches, you teach, you mentor, there's I'm a money motivated guy. Don't get me wrong. I don't want I don't need y'all in the comments on me on this one, but like I'll chase the bag, but at the same time, when I have somebody that comes up to me, it's like, Coach, I saw you in Michigan back in so and so at this event, and dude, I did that one thing. Like you gave me 20, but I did this one really really well. I made an extra 20 grand because of it. It's like
Awesome.
that's cool, man. Like that
Yeah.
is just like helping your fellow human being, and it's like I
100%.
it's like right up there at the top of the pyramid. I think not the like
Yeah.
Illuminati pyramid, but like the pyramid, right? Of like all
Exactly.
good things we can do. So,
Yeah.
so I'm itching to dive into social media, but like
Yeah.
Perplexity is like gave me this roadmap. I love using. If you guys don't use Perplexity, it's great for research. That's how it wrote that badass intro that I gave Karen. So that wasn't Coach Carroll's writing. You guys know I'm dyslexic, so it would have been terrible. But before we
Well,
get, oh, go
Coach
ahead.
Carroll,
Yep.
actually, you are not the only one who is
Oh,
dyslexic.
got more in common as we go.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, no, I mean, so that's also something when you were talking about teaching, reaching, connected. And so, as someone that, had that experience going through school, that's
Yeah.
something I was keeping in the back of my mind that everyone has different learning styles. And so with teaching, as you can probably imagine, you need to be approachable and, personalize it to basically, to
Yeah.
different
I,
person. So
you
yeah,
know,
hear
it's
that.
it's crazy because there's a book that I finished. I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months ago. If you haven't read it, you would probably really enjoy it. It's called The Dyslexic Advantage.
Yes.
It's fantastic because it takes it away from looking at dyslexia as a learning disability, and it's
Mhm.
a learning style. And I can
Yeah.
still remember in AP calculus, the teacher was like on the whiteboard, just going to town, going to town, going to town, going to town. Turns around, is like, DJ, you're not going to take any notes. And I was like, I'm locked in. I'm listening. I'm learning like as they're talking. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'll start taking notes. Like I didn't want to get in trouble, but I'm like, no, I've got it. It's like, it's
Yeah.
just the learning style. And so that's so wild. And I think it's super important. That's why I talk about it. I've never like taken a test, and like I've gotten some shit online from people who are like, yeah, you're self-diagnosed. It's like, I'm like, yeah, what do you call having to read the same page 4 times because you don't understand it because your reading comprehension skills so
Yeah.
bad, bro? Like textbook dyslexia. It's like, I'll say
Yeah.
words backwards.
Mhm.
I read words out of order. Like any way you want to slice it. Like I'm there. I didn't need to like go do a study to figure that out.
Right. Well, and yeah, I mean, I actually did get tested for it because I always struggled like with the timing, aspects, and I would like memorize everything in tests, which as a professor, I had exams, which my students love because I feel like what better way for students to be able to see what they actually know about a field than actually apply it. So I'm all about papers, projects, hands-on experience,
Yes.
because at the end of the day, for a job, what are people going to say? Oh, what did you get on this one exam for your class? So as a professor, I'm like done. Like, and so my students
Yeah.
thrive on that because there's just I hated exams as a student and reading comprehension. Yeah, I feel you. And so what helped me was I actually had a strategy tutor at Florida. I am forever indebted to her because she really kind of understood like the different learning styles and helped me out tremendously. And I actually, as part of my books that I emphasize, I actually include what Richard Branson at Virgin talks about as being, because he has dyslexia. And so he talks about it as a super skill. And he actually had this whole campaign. He partnered with LinkedIn where you can add that as a skill. So it's been very interesting to kind of see kind of the branding and the awareness of talking about this. And so I think it's important. And
Wow.
I try as a professor to show my students, yes, I am a professor, but I'm also a human being with different interests, different stories, but also different, backgrounds and perspectives. So yeah.
Yeah. Note to self, add that to my LinkedIn profile starting
There
tomorrow.
you go. Yeah, there is. There is a skill. Yeah, it is. It's like dyslexia plus. I think that's what I mean. They had a whole campaign on that. So it was, if anyone's
Wow.
interested, like just search, Richard Branson dyslexia LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love that. So I know I only have you for a short amount of time. I'm super excited. And like I know people are like probably right now, they're like, DJ, you're a college dropout. You like talk so much shit about traditional education. You have a professor on. I'm telling you guys, Karen is different. She is, I would put her up there with Linda and some of these other people that like sometimes like there are people that are just cogs in the wheel that are in the system. And then you come across people like Karen that like what she just says. Like, no, just because we've always done tests doesn't mean that's the mile marker on if you're smart or not. Like maybe you don't work out too well in tests, but you just crush it in like live presentations, right? And so I'm excited to have you on today, and I really want to just like jump right into this. The let's talk a little about like the consulting and the research side of things, because you probably have access to papers and research studies that have been done out there that like even I mean I'm in the space, but like this Carroll Media is my business. We do social media, but it's like what trends are you seeing in like influencer marketing, crisis management? Like I mean in a world where, tweets are now the AP newswire, right? Like in a world where photo books or let me look, I'm going to present it this way. To me, Facebook like groups are now like online forums, which is now like the community square, right? Because it's like-minded people. I see Twitter being where you can get fast communication. It's like I see news stations. I mean, mainstream news doesn't matter. MSNBC, if Fox, they break stories 2 days later after I see them on Twitter. Like, I'm sorry, X. Don't come at me, Elon. You look at Instagram and it's like, we don't have photo albums anymore in our homes. We still do. We print. Tori does like
Yeah.
a dump and prints them, but like a lot of people, it's all digital now. And so, like, what are you seeing like with influencer marketing, with crisis management? Like, how important is it? Because since 2016, Karen, I've been preaching from the rooftops, like small businesses, you need to have a social media presence. You've got to have a personal
Yeah.
brand because this
Yeah.
is the future. All right. And they like scratch their head. And now I'm like 10 years later, I'm like, do you believe me now?
Yeah.
But like, talk to us about like where has the ball went and then where do you see it going? Some of the changes that you see coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you have mentioned, Coach Carroll, like it's been a wild roller coaster to say the least. It's been a lot of fun. And I feel one of the things that is very rewarding about being in this field is you never get bored because it's constantly changing. But there are times where I'm like, can we just hit the pause button so I don't have to reinvent and like redo every single talk that I'm doing for class and every assignment, So there's been times where like if there's a gift, like throwing paper in the air. I mean, that's usually I'm like, well, okay, like another change. But where I've seen, where basically social media is I think that at the end of the day, tools are going to change, human behavior what doesn't. And so there's always going to be places where people come together to connect, like-minded, based on various interests, based on various goals in mind. And that really depends on the platforms. And we've seen platforms steal from each other. And I almost equate it to Game of Thrones. Like everyone's giving each other like features. And I feel bad for Snapchat. I mean, they really got screwed, by Instagram with stories. And then now it's TikTok and, Reels. And I mean, It's the whole gamut.
Hey, meritocracy. Spiegel should have
Yeah,
sold for 3 billion back in the day, man. I
I
I
know.
thought that was one of the biggest mistakes. I'm like, why you want to go against Zucks? Like he done took out IG, like and I think about that same timeline horizon, like there that was when the talks that Microsoft was looking at.
Yep.
I'm like, bro, why do you want to go fight those guys? Like I praise him for trying it, but I mean they
Yeah.
roll out a new like they're like spectacles. Zucks like we did a deal with Ray Bans. Like good, like it's just like it's so tough
It's
for these
crazy.
dudes. Sorry, I didn't
I
mean to interrupt.
No, no, no. But I still think of all of the platforms, I think Snapchat does win on the lens. I will give them that. So I
Or
think,
like when you say lens, like the AR, like
yeah,
augmented reality
AR, yeah,
piece.
feature. I mean, I feel like, I mean, Instagram tries, but yeah, I'm gonna give that to Snap. But I feel like that they're, in terms of where we've been, I mean, people are coming together, sharing ideas, breaking news, there's different ways and functions, but at the end of the day, it's about relationships, disseminating information, and coming together to build that influence. So where I think you've been spot on in terms of telling these businesses like you need to have a digital presence, you need to have a personal brand because that's basically we're not in like a traditional media first, world. We are
Oh,
social and influencer first mentality where people are going to social first, but they are trusting people like them that they resonate and feel that they have a connection, and those are the influencers and creators. So where I'm going with this in terms of where we're going now is that we're actually seeing employees becoming the next wave of influencers. People are going to be like, yeah, you have it working for a company, but like, I want to know the human side. Like, I want to hear the stories. Like, if we are looking at Carol Media, like, I want to know what DJ's doing. I want to know what each of these team members are doing. And so by building the personal brand, you're holistically lifting up the business to a whole nother level. So we're seeing that with a lot of different companies like GM, for example, had really kind of been early to that with their employees, of really saying, yes, I work at GM and here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing this. And then Humana actually here in Louisville had a whole employee advocacy program way before everyone else. So there's
wow.
some brands that like we're really on the cusp of like what we're seeing right now. But in terms of, looking at crisis communications, like the AI has thrown everything into consideration, like with the rise of deepfakes. How do you know if you see a video of yourself, if it was real or someone basically took all of the data that basically was out there on you and made a fake video of yourself? How do you prove that was
Yeah.
so that's been a conversation that I've had with my researchers, but also consulting. And how do you basically utilize AI effectively and proactively in a time of crisis? So I actually just finished a training session where we incorporated some of those best practices before, during, and after a crisis. And AI is a huge tool of helping you kind of manage all the data points and kind of synthesize everything together, looking at social media, say, okay, what's trending, what's warning signs, like, oh my gosh, like we need to address this. How do we address that? What templates do we need to create to make sure that we're personalizing the messages appropriately? So AI is definitely a key asset. It's not going to be necessarily a replacement, but the teams
Yeah.
that use it for social media are going to be the ones that replacing people that don't.
Yeah. I said I recorded a podcast at the end of May, and I literally was like, if you're a creative agency, you're fucked. Like if that's your main thing, because AI, sorry, I'm pretty raw on my podcast, guys. I sorry, squints a little bit. It's the creative agencies, like the technology. I still remember when Chat 3 came out, maybe in 3.5, and I was like, oh, okay, well, can it make images? Like it can, like when Dolly came out and it was like, holy shit. And I was like, cool, make me an image of a family standing in front of a house. And like, dude, their like face was melting, their fingers were real long. And I was like, oh, we got some work to do. And so I was like, maybe in a few years. And it's
Mhm.
like, dude, that was the end of 2022, right? That fall of 2022. And what's been crazy is Willow, my daughter, was born April 23. So I've got to see like a human grow, and I've got to see AI that basically had maybe a 6 month head start grow, right? Grok 4 just came out, consistently perfect SAT scores over and over and over. Dude, Willow couldn't even read an SAT right now, let alone do a perfect score. So, like, the way that these platforms are moving and how fast
Mhm.
they're growing is
Yeah.
insane. And the creative that's coming out, everybody thought when AI came out, there was like, oh, creative will be like the last to be in trouble, right? Because like they draw pictures, and it's actually been the flip flop of that. And it's like we're using it. We kind of we joke around. We call it our slop shop, and it's like, you know, if you guys aren't familiar, AI slop is like stuff that comes out that's like maybe a word's off, maybe something's not right, and it's like we're using it to be able to create content for our small business clients that would have taken a General Motors budget or an Adidas budget to recreate, right? Like we one of our for one of our insurance clients, we had one of our ads this last quarter was it said that's going to be a saucy claim, and it was a giant saucy meatball smashing into a car, and it's like, how do you recreate that like in real life, right? It's like, and so it's giving this creative advantage, and
Yes.
so I kind of like roll back and I say, I go back to what Jensen Wong said yesterday. You're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by the human that knows how to use AI better than you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the game that we're in right now, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, and I look at AI as a tool, and which it's interesting as a professor, there's opposite ends of the continuum. Like people are like,
Yeah.
yeah, full force, use it at your peril. And then others are like, oh my God, it's like Terminator's coming and we're banning everything. I'm kind of in the middle. And like, I love working with brands that kind of have an ethical, professional, and legal perspective. And one of the companies that I do a lot of work with is Adobe. And they were actually one of the first that really had their AI policy front and center, which I'm like, this is good. This was refreshing. So for me, like as a professor, if I'm advocating for tools or advocating for businesses, that's one. But I agree with you. Like, I mean, ChatGPT and all of these tools are like part of my daily routine as a professor, and I actually incorporate different assignments. And one assignment that I think is very useful is, you know, related to personal branding. It's like I asked, you know, ChatGPT, like, okay, everything you know about me, how do you rate my personal brand? What is the audit? Like, can you do an audit of my personal brand? What's working, what's not, and give me some suggestions? And it's like a coach in many ways.
Yeah.
And I did a talk in Phoenix last month all about AI and personal branding and how do you utilize it. And so I got to the point when I was doing my research, I'm like, okay, there really needs to be a GPT, you know, for personal branding. So I went online and I'm like, oh, I like this, but I don't like that. So I actually built my own GPT, you know, on personal branding. So if you search on ChatGPT, personal brand coach, that's the one that I've created. And it's all about doing audits, giving you feedback,
Nice.
identifying risks. You know, that's a key thing too. It's like if you use AI, it's like, okay, here's my personal brand. What are things that would be an issue for me if I got into a crisis? How would I go about in handling that? And it was funny. One of the answers that I got was, yeah, Karen, if there was a coffee shortage, you would be in big problems. I'm like, well, yeah, a zombie, I would not be able to function. So it's you know, there's a lot of ways. It's about how and why you use these tools. Similar to, it's a strong connection to what we do in social. So if you were familiar and well versed in social, the transition to AI is seamless. But if you are trying to start like brand new to AI, you might not necessarily have the full understanding, the comfortable ability of the technology as you did with social. So it's like a seamless
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah, I'm curious. What's your thoughts on this? Because so in my book that's coming out, we
Yeah,
pushed the publish back.
congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate it. We pushed it back a couple of months. We got some cool promo stuff that's coming, so like we pushed it back. It'll be coming out in October. But in the Hunter Head game, I talk about there's 3 technological waves that have hit small businesses, and they all start with A: access, attention, and artificial intelligence. Access was the internet. I also had somebody, they're like, dude, you need to go like trademark that. And I'm like, oh, I'll figure it out. Access was like the internet, right? And so like if you missed that one, right, like you're still advertising in the yellow pages or something, right? You don't have a website in 2025. Then came the social media piece, and I think what you're touching on is like, hey, if you're behind on those two, now AI's coming. You know, there's been this like warm fuzzy saying of like, oh, it's going to level the playing field, right? I actually think it's disproportionately stretching it. It's almost like the rich get richer, the poor get poorer type of thing. And my dad used to always tell me, where it's like with the internet, it was like, well, if you use that information versus like you still were going to an encyclopedia, that's not leveling the playing field because like they're not using it the same. Social media the same way, stretched even further. And now even with like Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, any of these, I think there's like 3 ways that people are using this. They're using it as like a glorified Google prompt, right? Like, hey, where should I eat dinner tonight? They'll
Right.
use it for like research, maybe a little bit, or like hey, here's this email I'm going to send, rewrite it for me. But I think like the power users are the ones like you're doing. It's like, hey, take everything you know about me, like spot my weaknesses, give me some trends, like where are you seeing this go? Which I think compounds because if you have a social media presence like you do, like I do, there's
Mhm.
tons of information for it to go off of.
There
If you
is.
didn't build a social media profile, there's not a lot on the internet. You don't have that, I think you called it a digital footprint. Like Chad's like, you're gonna have to tell me some stuff about you because I can't find you online. Talk to me about like how you see that all playing out, and like, is it leveling playing field, or are we just stretching? And if you stay on the cutting edge, you just keep getting
Yeah.
further and further ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I would say that it's a two-part answer for me. So yes, I do think that there is definitely a wide range of different knowledge, gaps across the board. I do feel like if you talk to people like in Silicon Valley, like they're going to be like fully like immersed into things that you're like, okay, I didn't even know that was going to be happening. Like,
Yeah.
and, like whoa, mind blown. And then you have others who have zero clue. They're like, I'm totally anti-tech. I'm not even touching it. So you still have that, and you kind of saw that in social media. So that's why I always say, yeah, the people who've been immersed in social media, who understand the trends, the culture, kind of been already like proven to kind of have those initial behaviors of curiosity and learning. Like you're like, okay, yeah, we're basically on the forefront. So I would say in terms of like utilizing in terms of access. I would say that the risk that you do see here that I've already seen, and you probably have seen this as well on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people who say that they're the expert, the leading expert in AI. And I'm like, okay, is anyone really, really like the leading expert of AI? I mean, there are some people that are at the forefront, but
Yeah.
there is this pressure, I think, across the board in our industry where people are like, if I say I'm an expert, then I'm going to get business, I'm going to get expertise, opportunities, and all this stuff. But for me, I look at, even in social media, and I've written books, I've done all of this work. I tell people I'm not an expert, I'm an enthusiast. I am
Ooh,
passionate
I
about
like
this
that.
field. Yeah, and I'm constantly learning. Like if I say, "Oh, yeah, I'm an expert," like that basically means I'm done learning. And for me, as a professor and a professional, like that and human being, I never want to be done learning. I want to constantly
Yeah.
soak in the knowledge. So I would say if you label yourself as an expert, you're limiting your full potential. Where if you are an enthusiast, you're constantly growing and evolving along with the technology.
I always say I'm a student and practitioner, not a pundit, right? Because,
Right.
and it is like when I see these people, they're like, I'm an expert. I'm like, cool. If you're speaking on stage, you're not like the nerdy AI expert because those guys are so introverted. They don't want to be on stage, right? If you really know how to like build an offline large language model that's, like open, you're taking llama and bending it and like launching it on your own server. Like that guy's probably not giving a class or teaching, right? They're like, a crowd. And then the other side of this is like, I found a prompt the other day that was like, I'll have to send it to you. It was like basically telling ChatGPT like analyze my history, tell me like am I a power user, how do I use it, how many messages, blah 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 blah. And so like it told me that I've spent between 200 and 300 hours on ChatGPT, and I've transacted almost 3,000 messages back and forth, and most of my queries are 7+ messages in length, which means that I'm making it reiterate itself, right? It's like, and I take the
Mhm.
business mind that I have, which is processes and systems, and I'm taking that to it. One of the coolest things I've found recently is like if you have something that you want to do some research on, as a pro tip, you guys can write this one down. Tell it to play the devil's advocate. And I really like the O3 Mini used to be like fire. They've limited that some. There's been some stuff that's kind of leaked on that they've pulled it back to like the $200 a month user now. I'm on the $20 plan. We have team members. I'm like, go spend the 200. I'll tell you why in a second. But on this, like, I use the 4.1, which is done really, really well with some deep research. And I'll say, hey, play devil's advocate, negotiate both sides, and then summarize the best points of it. And so what it does is it literally takes its brain and like goes argues this side, and then it like goes and argues this side, and then it can look at both of those and say, actually, this is probably the best course of action. Game changer, man, for doing research. Other than like, where should I eat dinner tonight? Right? Like we have a genie in our pocket, and people are like, it's just they're not using it. I want to touch on something too, Karen, that I wrote down here because when you said AI, I don't know if you saw this or not. I actually had one of my team members tell me this, or one of our clients tell us this the other day. So July 10th was a big day. Facebook and Instagram opened up their content to now be searchable and accessible online, for search engine optimization. Now the platforms can see it like never before. And I don't think this is getting enough press. I don't think people realize how groundbreaking this is because if you're, Mike Smith 1197 on Instagram, right?
Mhm.
And you own Mike Smith's insurance agent, and you only have one Instagram profile, and it's from or one Instagram video on your profile, and it's from college, and you're bonging a beer, like, dude, you're in trouble because like that could be the number three search result on Google in a couple of months when somebody types in your name.
Yeah.
Talk about crisis in PR. Like, Karen, let's touch on that because this was
Yeah.
like, I made a video yesterday about it. I was like, I told my team, I was like, I know it's not studio day, but we got to get this thing fired up because like we got to get this information out to our clients because this is important.
Oh, 100%. Because I mean, I think that, especially for these search engines which I mean, again, Google has AI capabilities as well. And so it's taking all of those data points from all of these different platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. And they're basically utilizing it as part of their search results. And so you're absolutely right in terms of like the significance of this announcement, because you would be able to see some things like Twitter. I still call it Twitter, so yeah,
Yeah.
don't get me on. I'm RIP the bird logo. But I think that was the big thing that I told my students is like you're able to see your social media content like come across on your search engines. And so if people type, your name for a job interview, it's like, oh, this comes up, and you're like, is that the best first impression you want? And I have a good friend, your listeners might, want to follow him. His name is Dennis Yu. He's awesome. He's a
Yep.
data analyst, CEO or CFO of Blitz Metrics. And so I would always bring him to class, and he always showed the students like these platforms make money because they're databases. I mean, they have so much data on you, more than like and we've been willingly giving this data, like photos, images, audio, like likes, dislikes, friends, connections. And so he would actually show and all the information he could get from someone. And so he used me as the guinea pig. He's like, let's find out what your professor has liked in the week. And I'm like, thanks, Dennis. But it kind of shows, like what these platforms know. And then if you incorporate that in terms of public searchable results and then add in AI is taking this data points and adding it to their systems, it's like a whole new ball game, in terms of not only
Yeah.
price communication, reputation management, strategy, and also ownership of your identity, that's accessible to everyone who is able to use these tools.
Yeah. It's powerful, powerful stuff, man. And with AI, there's good sides, there's bad sides to it. I
Yeah.
think I'm very much in the middle too. Like I am one of those guys like, yeah, how's this end? Yeah, the robots take over. Like, what's that timeline look like? I don't know. Maybe my great grandkids fight that battle. Like, I don't know. I'll be sure to pass my rifles down. I don't know. That's why I'll tell you. I don't know if you saw this clip. There was a conference where some of like these big developers, AI developers, not like the CEOs, the Sam Altman guys. These dudes, those guys have people like Karen on their staff that polish them and like tell them what to say when they go. These were like the raw just engineers. And one of the guys said there's a 20% chance that AI wipes out a 500,000 people like in the next 15 years. And it kind of went silent. I watched this clip. I can't remember the name of the conference. It's on YouTube. And it kind of went silent. And the next follow up question was like, so what are you doing about that then? And the guy said, I bought 100 acres in the Midwest and I'm provisioning it. And I was like, holy shit. Like, if that's the dude that builds the robots and that's his plan B, like, oh my gosh, like, it's crazy. Because you think union strikes at Ford are bad now. Wait until it's all the robots that are going on the union strike, right? Like, that
Yeah.
changes the game a little bit.
Well, and it's funny, like my mom, who I call the OG Dr. Freberg, she's a professor in psychology, and she was telling me she had a conference a while ago, a few months ago. She was sitting next to a guy that his whole thing, I mean, it kind of sounded like something from like a movie. Like his whole business was about how to test the AI to see if it can break it, but also show like these companies like all of the loopholes and say, yeah, you might want to fix this. And he's like, he was working on things that he's like, yeah, you're not going to see this until like maybe a couple of years down the road. Like he's like advanced with ChatGPT, but he was like, yeah, it was like absolutely reasoning. It would shut off the computer because it's like you didn't let me finish my task, and it was like literally doing all of these things. And he's like, whoa. And my mom's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, so
Yeah.
it's here, it's happening. And so I think it's very like that's why I think education is so important. Like you can't sleep on this, and
Yes.
but it's also about, yeah, having that balance. And I agree. I love AI. Like I'm waiting though for the AI to do my laundry. Like where's that technology? I mean, I
Yeah, my wife Tori has like, we will not have one of these robots in the house. Like that is not happening. And I was like, cool. How about like on the farm? Can it weed eat the fence rows and like mow the grass? You cool with that? Like I'm trying to find a happy medium with her still.
exactly. Oh, I want a full robot. Yeah, definitely laundry. You know, it's like yes,
The
please. I mean,
Optimus Tesla robot, right? Can make you cocktails and
absolutely.
everything.
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm curious because you said your mom's in psychology, so we're seeing all these studies that are popping up now where people are saying, hey, if you're a heavy user of ChatGPT, these models, and you look at your like brain scans, like after an extended period of time, your brain's not lighting up anymore like it used to, right? Have you seen some of this stuff out there? But again, I can't point to exact study, but like I've seen it, it's
Yeah.
floating around on X and stuff. So here's my question with that, because I'm always like, what's the other side of the coin? What if, like, cool, I use these things all the time. My brain's not lighting up like it used to. However, is that just meaning my brain's not working as hard, but my
Mhm.
output has increased? Because, like, really, like, net in business, that's why I do anything, right? Like, I buy better equipment. It's to get more output with less input, right? Like, that
Right.
is unit economics.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything like that? Are you seeing any studies around this, like with AI?
Um,
Like, are we all going to be mushed brain potatoes in 20 years, and
no,
that's why they take
no.
over?
No, I honestly think, I mean, that's kind of out of my wheelhouse. That's definitely on my mom's side, but I mean, she also writes
About to
tech.
get her on.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's, basically on the psychology side. And so what she's been doing is kind of like incorporating those findings into her textbooks as well. So she's also writing textbooks in psychology. But I think what she's seen is actually on the flip side. She's like, it actually has helped so many people who didn't have the ability to utilize, maybe some of their brain functions into really putting out more output. And so um,
Wow.
there's been a lot of work and done, with patients, with dementia, Alzheimer's, and there's a lot of different capabilities that AI can bring to the table. And so those are things that I think are what I see as the benefit. I don't necessarily see much per se, but I mean, as you
Yeah.
said, with all the tools, it's kind of like an athlete. Like there's certain things like, yeah, we're going to have to take some time in training and kind of figuring out like the technique and everything. But once you get into a rhythm, it's like second nature. So I kind of view
Right.
it more of a familiarity with the behavior. But if
Yeah.
you're evolving and doing stuff, then it's always going to change.
Yeah, I think, and it's always easy to go, well, that's how we always did it, and it's
Right.
changing. And like, there's always going to be people that are trying to stop the progress. Like, that's just part of the game.
Right.
And it's typically people that have nothing to add, right? So it's
Right.
like, so here's the other thing that I'm curious about, because like for me, I use ChatGPT a lot every single day. The voice, right? Like, I mean, literally just hit the little like microphone piece, and I'll just talk to it for like 3 minutes, man, and just like data dump. Because a guy like me, I've got a million ideas in my head running around. Its ability to then take those and then organize them to where when I reread it, I'm like, yeah. That's kind of what I was trying to get to. That makes a lot more sense than what I just pontificated for three
Right.
minutes. And I was just telling Linda, my business coach, this the other day, is like, it's allowing me from like a CEO level to put out content like for my team, right? Documentation, strategies. Like, hey, here's our 2025 strategy. That would have taken me, like, I would have had to lock myself in a room for 2 weeks. And let's face it, I'm like, I ain't got the attention span to do it anyway, right? And so like, it's
Right.
allowing me to kind of level up my professionalism, my output, if you will, in my business,
Yeah.
because it is literally, the most like badass assistant you could ever ask for.
Oh, 100%. It's been a game changer for teaching as well. And so, I mean, it's been very interesting to kind of see how like professors in my role, with teaching, how they viewed it. Some, professors that I know have outright banned AI completely in their
Yeah.
classroom. And for me,
Why? Why do you see it like why? Because they don't understand it.
I think they don't understand, or they're just afraid. They think that it's going to be like they always hear the stories in the news about the cheating. And I'm like, well, you need to kind of like anything, you need to tell the students, like need to inspect what you expect. So the way that, I mean, because if you say, yeah, free for all, it's like you're going to get free range kids like you would do in parenting. But you need to have rules and kind of expectations, but you also need to educate and have those conversations. So in my classes, I have an AI policy. I'm like, look, I expect you to use AI because it's a marketable skill. It is not going to,
Yes.
you're going to have a job probably that hasn't even been invented yet surrounding AI of some, for real. I mean, I
Yeah.
look at it as like, I mean, when I was in school back in the day, not the Stone Ages that my students say, but back in the day, I mean, I would never imagine that I would be teaching and doing research and kind of doing the work that I'm doing in social media. That wasn't even a thing. Well,
Right.
MySpace came out, but
MySpace. Yeah. Tom. Go Tom.
good job. Yeah, those eight friends, that was a big thing. But I mean, I tell them like, here's how I want to use you to use AI, and always as part of my assignments, I always ask a reflection like, how did you use AI? Was it comfortable? What was the process? What was the things? What did you learn? What are you going to do next? And so it gives the student that pause and they, oh, okay, this is why we're using this for the personal branding audit assignment, or this is why I am doing this content creation for a client. So it's always about the educational factor that I think is important,
Yeah.
because if you just, let everyone just, that's when chaos, basically ensues. But
Yeah.
it's really important to kind of be that coach, and you're a coach, and it's about guiding people. And what for me as a teacher, it guides the students along to the best time
Yeah.
and
I
expectations.
I love that. I like kudos to you for leaning into it. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, but I also think that we'll get to a place where it's kind of like saying, well, I wanted you to do a research paper and you told me you went over here and read this book, but you didn't cite the source, like you cheated, right? I can see that being like at the end of the page where you used to do APA citing, right? It's like, yo, so on this part I used Claude and this was my prompt. And
Right.
on this part I did you because I'll tell you with the Hunter Head game, what AI has been able to do is like I wrote that. I had 500 pages of my manuscript I've been working on for 10 years. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to edit this thing. I'd went through like 4 different editors. They're like, they were all like, yo, you got to do this and this and this. I'm like, this is too much work. I'm out. I got a business to run. And so I was like, you know what? I bet I could hire somebody to help me look at this, structure it, give me my table of contents, and then I bet I could use AI. And that's what we did. So every other chapter, we edited with ChatGPT, and every other chapter, we used Claude. And it was amazing because it wasn't like here's my manuscript. It made it better, Karen. I said, here's my raw text, my manuscript. Let me know what stories you need from me, what additional questions you have to be able to tie some of these things together. Because I would write just like almost like as in journal entries. And I was like, let me know. And it was come back and it's like, hey, tell me about a time where this happened. Turn on the microphone. I give them a 4-minute story. And then it's like, boom, it's way better than I could have ever wrote it because I'm dyslexic.
Mhm.
And like what happened is like, I now have a book that's going to help people. And it's like, man, because of that tool that I have, like I keep telling people it's right up there with the will and fire, I think. And we're going to look back and it might be to our demise. Like, cause you could easily say like, well, fire's bad because houses burned down. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
but we also boiled our water and like stopped getting whatever typhoid or whatever that was that you have to boil out of your water. And so like I can see where you're like on both sides of that. I hate to hear that like some professors are just like, no, not in my class because it's like I fly airplanes like the E6B, the old slide calculator. Like
Yeah.
why am I have a Garmin GPS with autopilot. Like why do I need to, it's like
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I think that there's a lot of fear for the unknown, or for, kind of the new aspects. And I feel that's kind of been my role, is not only educating, the students, but also educating my colleagues. And so I actually, one of the things that I wanted to do, like, and I kind of view like that's kind of the same conversations that we had like in social media. I can tell you when I first started and said, I want to go into this field, I was told many times, Coach Carroll, like, you're never going to get a job. You're never going to be known for teaching social media. It's a fad. It's going to go away. And it's like, well, now I'm like, well, how about that?
So
So you can't be afraid of something new. You need to go full force into really understanding it, because the opportunities are endless if you do.
yeah, it's funny enough that I had a business coach that would have been like 2014, 2013,
Mhm.
2014. I was like, hey, like I started public speaking when I was 23. So I was like, hey, I really want to make content around social media. I'm
Right.
enthusiastic about it. I could see that like this is going to be a game changer for small businesses because I was using it in my business. And the
Mhm.
guy was like, hey man, you don't want to go like chase that trend right now. Everybody's chasing. There's always a flash in the pan that people are wanting to, like you said, the AI experts are wanting to talk. And so I literally just told my brother, who's my COO in the business, I said, dude, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Like, I'm going to lean into this AI stuff. I'm going to teach what I know from my heart, from my truth. Do I
Mhm.
think there's more people out there that know more than me? 100%. I hope there is because I look forward to learning from them. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I can't stand up and speak my truth and share how I was able to help people, right?
Well,
And
and the more the
my
merrier.
business,
I mean, and
right?
I actually, when it comes to textbooks too, like I tell people, like, they're like, oh man, Karen, you must have all these books and you must be competitive. I'm like, no, like I want to build a bookshelf supporting all of my friends who have two books. And so literally I'm like the first person who I'm like telling people, yeah, you need to write a book, you need this, because I've seen not only the joy and as I'm really excited for your book coming out in October. There's something about having that book and just being able to pass along that knowledge and like leaning in, as you said, into a tool or area effectively. And I think it's so important because so many times people get in their head games like, I don't know if I should go out, what kind of perspectives do I get? And that sometimes happens with my students. I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
Maybe people say, well, okay, that's your perspective, but there's more benefits and opportunities that come through if you just put yourself out there and really kind of like show and grow publicly and saying, hey, these are my points. Because there might be like, even if you connect with one person or you
Yep.
connect with a group of people and make a difference and impact, like you've won. But if you can't do that if you're hesitant and get in your head game. So I've tried
Yeah.
to do that. I actually have a Facebook group for social media professors that's almost 10 years old, over 2,300 professors, worldwide.
Wow.
And my goal has been like, okay, utilize your platform as a professor to build opportunities for yourself. Because I've had people come to me saying, how do you get these consulting, gigs, Karen? How do you get these buy-ins for companies as a professor? Because I mean, I am very aware of how professors are perceived and perceptions. And I have students that are like, yeah, you live in your office, you have patches on your elbows, like for your jackets, and you just talk about theory all the time. I'm like, well, that's not me. I'm trying to invent like what it means to be a modern day professor. And so I'm trying to help others, in that realm. So
I love that.
change is hard, in terms of changing perceptions. And so that's one
Yep.
thing that I hope to do, in my field.
I love that. Nido Quabain said the only person that welcomes change is a baby in a dirty diaper. And half the time Willow still runs away from me when I'm trying to change her with a dirty diaper.
Yeah.
Let's hit some quick ones here. Coffee or tea for a late night writing session?
Oh my God, coffee 100% all day.
Even late at night?
100. I'm a Scandinavian to her. Most of my family's from Sweden, so like they are the country that drinks the most coffee in the world. So
Did not
yeah,
know that. Very cool.
absolutely, coffee.
Most memorable NCAA athletic achievement.
Ooh, I have two. I have two for that answer. One was the Olympic trials in 2004 because I actually was coming in second to last and qualified. I barely qualified because it was the year that I had a almost career-ending injury. Like I had a doctor tell me, yeah, if you keep going, Karen, you're not going to walk when you're 40, and I'm 42 right now. So that was like scary. So I came in thinking, I'm here. This is a goal of mine, whatever. And I quickly realized that I did better than I thought, and so I ended up like going into the finals in sixth place. My parents had so much faith in me because they came up. It was in San Francisco, so originally from California, so it was an easy drive for them. They had so much faith in me that they only booked our hotel for one night, and I'm like, I need to stay the next day. Thanks, mom and dad. But I ended up ninth, and that really kind of taught me the perseverance and dedication that you need to be mentally and physically tough. And then the second example was actually when I was at Southern Cal finishing my eligibility and going to grad school. We have a big rivalry with another school down there. Another school like at Louisville is, blue. So it's UCLA. So it's one of the only remaining dual meets in track and field. And I was told when I got to SC, I had one job, and that was to win the shot put against UCLA. Because since Title IX happened in the 70s, USC had never won that event against UCLA. I mean, UCLA had a powerhouse dominant program in the throws. So I'm like, oh, no pressure. And then they thought like Prey was like my dad, both my parents went to UCLA. My dad was, an NCAA runner All American, drafted by the LA Rams for football. And I mean, it was like, okay, his daughter is competing for that other school and coming here for this dual meet. I mean, so people made a big deal about it. So it was very competitive, and I had a volunteer coach. And this is where I tell my students, don't give people motivation because you never know what might happen. There was this volunteer coach, Coach Carroll. She was not nice. Let's just say that. She was very rude, not helpful to other athletes. And so I was the only USC athlete in the sea of blue, basically, of competitors. And there's a girl that was competing, had a massive PR on the shot put. And this coach was like, oh, yeah, way to stick it to her. She's going down. And basically to me. And I'm like, oh, really? Really? Okay. So I went in the shot put ring and I just slapped the shot put. I don't even remember what I was thinking. Like, you know what? If I'm gonna make sure that this shot put goes as far as it can, and if I get beaten, at least I know that I've done it. That was when not only did I beat her by a couple feet, but I had my PR, my best ever, and that was the school record. And then we won.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got the come through award performance, like the come through performance award at our back banquet last the following year, and the head coach was just like, yeah, Karen just destroyed them. It was awesome, and they just were so happy about that. And I showed my students, and I tell them it's like channel your emotions into something productive. If people downplay you or criticize you for something,
Yeah.
use that energy for productivity. Don't let it wallow into self-doubt. Like, so for me, I could
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm so intimidated, but I just got really
Got that
motivated.
chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then yeah, I did kind of smirk a little bit. I'm like, how about that? But
Yeah,
it was fun.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Favorite digital tool right now?
Well, I love Adobe Firefly. And I
Yeah.
speak because I am a terrible artist. My younger sister Carla is the artist in the family, and so I can draw a stick figure. And so for me, I love any tool that helps me get what's up here in my brain. I'm like, okay, I want to visualize this and kind of go through. So I love Adobe Firefly. It's awesome.
Nice. Favorite social media campaign that you've contributed to?
Well, I would say it kind of is along the lines with the Bird's Nest, our student-run agency, and it was actually last year. And I love how you can kind of foster and coach, like students' ideas into something really cool. So one of the companies that we work with for the Bird's Nest is Churchill Downs, and they came to the students basically for the 150th, and they're like, you know what, we're hearing about influencers and creators. We want to do something big for the 150th, and so they asked the students who would they like to see at the Derby for 150th? And the students were like, they had a whole pitch basically to bring Alex Earl and Alex Cooper on and have this whole podcast kind of focus. And for me, it was like kind of asking the students, I didn't have like the direct component, but I gave them feedback and saying, hey, have you thought about this? So I was able to kind of coach them a little bit in terms of, it was all the students, but I was able to
Wow.
like work that. And as a result, like Church was like, yeah, we're doing this. And seeing the students, like lights go up and they're just so excited because they're like, oh my God, like this was our idea. We're here. And then they were able to work the events and the side parties and be able to gather that experience. There was no more of a priceless opportunity to kind of see that fruition happen because I feel that those are going to be stories and experiences that the students will never forget. And for me, that
Yeah.
was the priceless experience to
That's
witness.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that Caller Daddy podcast, I didn't realize how big that was until
I didn't either.
we were on our honeymoon and we went to New England, did a whole road trip, and so like Fenway Park, we went there,
Yes.
and it was the night that she did like the Fenway
Oh,
Park thing. I was like, I've never seen more women at a baseball game before in my life. And
yes.
I looked at my wife. I said, "What's the over under on how many of the girls here? This is their first time at a baseball game."
Oh,
And like, and
100%.
it was like the power of influencers. Like, I don't think that people have fully comprehended it because
Yeah.
to see that, like, they all had their like Alex jerseys on, and like,
Yes.
I mean, it
Mhm.
was crazy. The line was wrapped around the stadium to get an autograph
Yeah.
from a lady.
Well, and I think too, for any kind of campaign, you want to see the metrics. Like, did we achieve our objectives and goals for this campaign? And going back to Churchill Downs, like they said, not only did they increase following, but they wanted to target specifically millennials and Gen Z to be coming to the Derby, coming to Churchill Downs as more of a lifestyle experience versus like just horse racing
Ah,
increased significantly in that demographic on their social media platforms across the board. And like they
wow.
had a huge intake. Like I don't know what the metric was, but it was really big of millennials and Gen Z saying, yeah, I'm going to plan to go to the Derby next year because
Yeah.
what they saw. And so for me, I'm like, that's like powerful information and data points that are
Sure.
much,
Yeah, because
yeah,
like I mean I'm originally from Indianapolis, and when I moved down here, I was like I didn't grow up with money.
yeah,
Like I didn't know what the Kentucky Derby was. Like it is very much a like in the ecosystem. But I think what's happening is social media is putting the like microscope on these things
yeah,
that happen in the world,
yeah,
and then people are like, wait, what? That's a thing. They're all dressed up. Look at those fascinating. I want to go
yeah,
experience that. And then it's like
yeah,
it's just it's a trend. Then at that point.
100%.
That is
Yeah,
so wild. I definitely got to follow up with you on the Facebook group because I bet there's a ton of people we can get
yeah.
on here as guests, other professors in this
Mhm.
space. Your passion for just creating new programs, being innovative, it is what I think every university should aspire to have on their campus. I think if I would have had more professors like you, I probably would have stuck with school. Dropped out 3 semesters into community college after turning down 8 football scholarships, and I think I think we're in a place now where we need to understand that like doing what's best for the students is
Yeah,
important, right? And so when you talk
100%.
about people putting that chip on your shoulder, that lady that said like, oh yeah, like put her, that
Mhm.
that was me my senior year of high school. Is my chemistry teacher, my guidance counselor was like, you'll never be as successful trying to mow grass for a living as if you just go be a chemical engineer. Like, DJ, you're an AP chemistry A student, like go. And instead of saying, you know what, you want to be an entrepreneur, let's connect you with the guy down the street that owns the Chevy
Yeah.
dealership. That guy's a hustler. You guys would hit it off. I just commend you. I can't say thank you enough, Karen, for coming on today, spending time with my audience, doing what you're doing with the Bird's Nest, doing what you're doing with the university, your books, your speaking. You're a light in this world, and so keep shining bright. We appreciate you having to come on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Coach Carroll, for the opportunity. And I just think, you do, you keep doing the work that you're doing. You're making an impact. And I think, it's great that you're able to help so many people around, not only the nation, but around the world. And so
Yep.
anything I can do to help to support you in your community, I'm an open
Thank
book.
you.
So,
I love it.
and I do want to say in terms of personal branding, I'm Karen, but not a Karen. So I had to kind of work that,
Is that in the profile? I feel like that needs to be like the tagline. Karen, not a Karen. That is
but
hilarious.
I always start a presentation like that. I did a presentation last week at GE, and I'm like, I'm Karen, but not a Karen. Let's just
Oh
and
yeah. Icebreaker.
yeah. I mean, they're like, oh my god, we didn't want to say it. I'm like, I know, and
It's too funny.
so
How
I try to
how
work
how
on
can
that.
people find you if they're interested? Like, hey, that lady's really interesting. Like,
Yeah.
well, maybe I'll check out her books and stuff. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm available through email. It's just Karen.Freberg at Louisville.edu, but I'm also all on social. Like I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm pretty much everywhere. So I'd love to stay connected and help out in any way I can and use this as a platform for further conversation and discussion.
Love it. Thanks so much, guys. That's gonna end it for this episode. We went a full hour on this one. I knew it was gonna be killer. I still got like a bunch of questions, so Karen, we'll definitely have to have you back in the future.
Absolutely. Come in.
Yeah, guys, make sure you hit that share button, the like, the comment. Make sure you tag your friends. Tell your grandma about the Sales Factory. That don't matter. Maybe she'll learn something too. Until next time, we will see you guys on another episode. I'm Coach Carroll. Hustle, it's worth it. This is the Sales Factory.